So growing vegetables in ground, like I said, because we're organic farmers, right? So you just want to make sure that you're rotating crop or you're like throwing in cover crop in there when you're done. So that way you're mending the soil and you're still having to soil test just as if like you're doing exterior. But yeah, so what we love about these season extension is that the vegetables don't have like blight issues, with tomatoes, and they turn out so beautiful, or they grow so much bigger. Like we had some Swiss chard and Napa cabbage, and they grew like a foot tall, and it's just crazy how like by providing an environment where like the soil bacteria is not jumping onto the leaves, are creating these beautiful like larger vines. And they're just getting like the right amount of heat and humidity that they need to like grow and flourish. So yeah, so I think when you seed, it's just like you just treat it just as if you're seeding in the exterior. The only pros is you're always getting much bigger, better, longer season. I mean, your plants like our tomatoes would go all the way out into like I want to say October, the end of October, and we're still like seeding, cherry tomatoes and heirloom tomatoes. And you're getting an abundant. Whereas like if we were to seed it outside, the season is very short. It's gone through like hail damage, wind damage, like anything you can think of. So that would be an advantage of like growing in ground. You're still having to like improve the soil. So I think those are the additions that I think I didn't mention.
One thing that I've heard is, because it's such high value, high value ground to grow stuff in, that the temptation is to just keep growing tomatoes over and over again because they're a really high value crop. But what kind of crop
Right.
rotations would you recommend, or have you tried out in the past?
Yeah, so we've almost nice to kind of like not do anything for a year or two. Like we've done that with the one at because there's only one high tunnel that we had for so long, and like you said, our high value crop was tomatoes. So for me, it's like maybe you want to like if there's not enough nitrogen, you could like, depending upon your soil test. I always tell people your soil test will like kind of spill out what other vitamins that you need. So like do you need to plant beans in there, or do you need to like put clover, or is it like winter rye that you need to put in there for the season? So there's so many, it depends on like what season that you're seeding it to, and then like maybe instead of that year you're doing tomatoes, you can go to like bok choys or seeding like lettuce or something where you can get a quick turnaround, or like turnip. It adds so much nutrient back to it. We've had it where we put turnip in ground, just like give it, some organic matter back into the ground. So yeah, there's so many different ways of like rebuilding your soil, and it just depends on like what variety. And you're correct, like that's why I chose to have three, because I'm like, at least then you're rotating the three within there, so that way you're not every year going back to the same high tunnel. Or I've also done potted stuff, where you can hang over time. I would love to do like hanging baskets of like maybe lettuce or like strawberries or something. So that way there's a diversity in that. So that way we're not using just one variety, able to get like different types of plantings in there. So yeah, I think it's all based upon what your soil is craving, and then like knowing which plants would give what nutrition back to the soil is also important. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, I don't have a direct answer for that one.
How do like pest and disease pressure differ from growing the same crop outside?
Yeah, I mean, like if you do the same crop, supposedly, like then it attracts, like for example, Big River Farms this year they got rid of potatoes altogether, because like one farmer would plant it and the other farmer, even though you're crop rotating within your plant, it's like someone still else is still doing it. So like I want to say that like pest is just inevitable if you don't have like the right amount of like birds in the area, or so that's one thing, is like to get rid of, let's say, like cutworm or aphids, or like there's different types of birds that like to eat different types of insects. So I always tell people that like you also should attract like natural habitat that likes that stuff to come onto your land, but yet again, birds also eat seeds, right? So then you probably don't want to attract them when you're planting your seeds, but maybe like later on in the season. So like maybe not put out the bird feeders. So yeah, there's so many different strategies. And then also like one was like gophers are attacking now our high tunnels, and we're supposedly they don't like marigolds. So we're gonna try that as like to plant some marigolds around that area. So there's just so many different strategies to prevent. But yeah, over time, if you like keep planting the same crop, that would be the one thing is like, you know, you attract the same pest and you attract the same. They know that they can count on that area every year. And then also it drains the fertility of the land, right? To like not add any organic matter into it or like manure. I usually like to put manure on a layer and like just let it sit fallow for 3 to 6 months before we do it again. We've had it where, you know, the chickens were on that and they let it sit for 3 to 6 months and then they built a high tunnel on top of that. And that was actually really good fertility too. There's just so many different ways to like amend your soil and to detract pests. And then that's crop rotation is so important for that pest management aspect too, though.
Yeah. What are some of the other high value crops you might grow besides tomatoes?
Tomatoes. Yeah, so we do, I want to say early cucumbers and zucchinis are really popular. So we're going to do that in one or two of our high tunnels is the zucchinis and the early cucumbers. And then, I mean, there's just early everything I feel like is always high value. Like season extension for even like greens, you know, or like bok choy right now, like everyone's craving for greens, and if you can bring greens to the market, it's high value, you know. Like asparagus, they're in season, but we had only probably like 20 bunches from our like 5 years of you know, planting it in ground. So there's so much, I want to say season extension in general will bring high value to the market every single time. So I think if we went to Seward Co-op and just told them, hey, we have, you know, some grains, they would take it because there is none that are local right now. Like even spinach, you know, right now. I mean, if you come during July, August, you'll have tons of it, you know, but now there's like no spinach, there's no lettuce, there's no cucumber, there's no zucchini. Yeah, so I think like season extension for before and after for those varieties are always going to be popular. So we're definitely going to do, and then of course the fruits are never a fail, you know, like your strawberries and your blueberries and your, you know, I've seen people grow them in like gutters inside the high tunnels where like they hang them
Oh,
off
interesting.
and they have like just gutters. And I was like, oh, I never thought of like growing strawberries. It was down south. We went and he was an organic grower for fruits. And I thought that was kind of fun. You know, I never thought of growing strawberries off a gutter, you know, thing inside his
Wow.
greenhouses. So yeah, so yeah, there's so many different types of crops I can think of that would be so much fun. Even the Napa cabbage, I think last year, and the Swiss chard was was a hit just because. So we like sprinkled it around the exterior just to like give it some rotation and color, and that like did really well too. And then we had radishes, which was no one else had radishes, and we had like seeded it for the Brewer Farm had seeded it just for like to add nutrition back to the ground, and we're like, hey, we can eat it. So we kidnapped some of the radishes that were to add value back to the ground. Yeah, so there's just so many. I mean, there's just so many things you could do with the high tunnels. Like I don't think you can go wrong with seeding anything inside it early. Yeah, at the end of the season is when I'm like that's when they're most hungry at the market, where now they're coming for like greens and they're coming for, you know, your cucumber. Now the cucumber season's out of season, and that's when they're looking for it, which is like the end of the season. And I remember this lady had, you know, just basket full of cucumber, and I was like, and she grew them inside her high tunnel, and she brought them to market, and it was just like a hit. Like all of a sudden, like, everyone was craving for cucumber. So I think it's almost like timing in this Minnesota season, like that you have it when no one else has it, even though you've been eating it all season. When there's like a drought of like 2 weeks, and just the quality of it is just crazy, right? You're eating like freezer burned cucumber for an entire season. So
I don't remember where I found this picture, but could you describe what's going on in here?
oh yeah, so I think this is in this looks like U of M's, right? But then I can explain what's going on in here. So what they ended up doing was mulching. As you can see, there's like some mulch in there, and then that's like crop rotation within your beds. And that's what my husband and I were thinking of doing this year, was creating beds within your high tunnel so that you can have that diversity for your CSA. So like you've got kale there, right? You've got like, I believe that's like beets and then carrots, and you've got pepper plants and then tomatoes in the back. So like you can actually crop rotate within your high tunnels. And I don't think people think of that. They usually think, okay, I'm gonna mass produce in this high tunnel and then move on to the next. But what you can do is within the diversity of your high tunnels, you can do it in beds like that, which is fun for like your CSA members, because then you can get like early varieties of stuff for that first picking, and then for market too, right? So you'll definitely be blessed. And for one of our high tunnels, we're going to do that, where we're going to do the lettuce, the cucumber, the zucchini, and then maybe do like some beets and radishes. So that way we can get early of everything, because we only have 3 high tunnels. And then let's say if you plant this year, you know, like kale here, and you want to put kale where the tomatoes are there back there now you can just swap. It's just that we have a bigger volume. We support about 4 CSAs in our farmers market. So we support Big River Farms, the Good Acre, and Shared Ground last year, and we had our own CSA. So that's about a 600 member CSA share, right? So we needed like the entire high tunnel for all of the tomatoes, and then we sold last year. We had 2 big orders from the Minneapolis School District for cherry tomatoes. So one high tunnel had to be designated for them, because they were ordering by the thousands, I believe, like for yeah, which was awesome. But then yet, you know, but this, I think this is great for like CSA. This will be great for like your farmers market, where you want to like bring in early crop of everything, a little bit of everything, and then you can also create diversity, and you can crop rotate within your atmosphere. So yeah, well, yeah, I mentioned it about like this would be like an example of a rototiller or a BCS. It can plow, it can till, and you can put implements on this, which is like very versatile. I think we always had like our 3 feet or 2 feet, and so because these high tunnels are so close in between, and you can't get a big tractor in there, that one of these would be good. And so it does all the job of a tractor. It can plow, it could disc, it could till. You can like hook up a brush mower to it, and it'll cut your grass. So, or a flail mower too. I mean, it does, it's kind of expensive. So if you can find somebody who has it resold, we didn't find one. We had to buy it and then buy all the implements. We don't even have half the implements. And by now, I mean, our BCS is as expensive as a tractor too.
Well, you gotta
But
buy
yeah,
all the
so I would
implements for tractors too, so that that adds up. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, it adds up just
yeah.
like right. But this one is just nice, because then if you want to like go and disc or plow in between the rows, you can, so that way your weeds are not growing inside. Some people just like to lay plastic or fabric, so that way they don't have to deal with that in between the rows. So invest in one of these if you need, if you're working in tinier spaces in the high tunnels, or just a rototiller would work too.